Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Certainly Allah's deen is Islam. 3. 19. What is Islam? Translation of Islam ki Yahai? What did Allah say? The Quranic perspective. Ghulam Ahmed Parwez 1964. Talui Islam Trust. Registered. 25B, Gulberg 2, Lahore. 7. Salvation. Najat. Ask anyone in the world, why does he tolerate so much suffering and trouble in the pursuit of religious rituals and commands? Why does he wake up in the later part of winter nights, bathe in freezing waters and sit on bare floors for bhakti? Why does he tolerate the trouble of hunger and thirst during the season of summer in which the days are as long as the height of a mountain? Despite his poverty and deprivation, why does he keep himself in privation by giving charity from his income? Despite the lack of sufficient resources, why does he journey hundreds of miles to perform a pilgrimage to some specific sacred destination? In the end, what is the ultimate purpose of going through these life-threatening troubles and privations and tests of patience? 7.1 The objective is salvation. You will see that from every corner of religion, i.e., from the followers of every religion, you will only receive one answer for these questions, and that will be that we do all this so that we can get najat, so that we can get mukti, so that we can get salvation. Due to the differences of language, these words vary but their meaning is the same i.e., man endures such hardships in the obedience of religious commands so as to achieve salvation. Salvation from what? 7.2 The meaning of salvation. According to Hindu Shastra, Sharia, every human child at the time of his birth brings with him the burden of his sins from his previous life. For the whole of his life he tries to get rid of the contamination of these sins, but the case is, more often than not, that there is a further increase in this contamination. Then he dies, and subsequently, together with the burden of these contaminations, he takes birth again. This process is continuous and is called the circle of Abhigaun. Tanasik. The aim and ultimate purpose of life is that man should achieve mukti from this circle of Abhigaun. The extreme hardships of religious commands and rituals are undertaken for this. As per Hindu Vedant, i.e., through mysticism, the human soul, Atma, is part of the soul of God, Paramatma, which has become separated from its whole and is trapped in prakrti, material impurities, and is constantly entangled in anguish and suffering. The purpose of life is to free this Atma from the constraint of matter, and this purpose cannot be achieved without going through the hardships and privations of Yuga. According to Buddhism, every desire of man becomes the precursor for a new hardship. The purpose of life is to free the human heart from the deception of the desires of the heart. In this way he achieves nirvana, which means complete annihilation. According to Christian belief, every human child is born with the burden of sin on his back from his first parents, Adam and Eve. The purpose of religion is to provide him with salvation from the burden of the sin, which can be achieved by believing in the crucifixion and atonement of Christ. The belief of the Jews is that every child of Bani Israel gains paradise following circumcision. But as a result of some sins having been committed by their ancestors in a bygone era, this nation will be sent to hell for a period of time. To be freed from the punishment of this hell is called salvation. Keep this concept of salvation in mind and see how at a fundamental level one element is a common value, i.e., that man was hale and hearty somewhere, and for certain reasons he was sent to the prison of the world. After toiling at the grindstone in this prison, once he has proven himself to be a gentleman, he will then be extricated from the prison and sent back to his original position. This is what salvation is. Using an ordinary example, you can comprehend it as a person who awoke in the morning feeling well and then became feverish around 10 o'clock in the morning. All day he remained feverish, the doctor administered medicine, and by dusk he received salvation and his fever subsided, i.e., he became as he had been in the morning prior to falling ill. He achieved nothing from the exertion and hardship of the whole day, he only became the same as he was previously. This is that concept. I.e. as you were. Which is the basis of salvation. The cloth was white, it became dirty with dust and grime, the dhobi washerman laundered it, the dirt was removed and the cloth became white as before. This is the meaning of salvation. Now reflect as to whether this explanation appeals to intellect and reasoning, that this great system of the universe, the awesome program of human creation, such an eminent process of divine revelation and guidance, was brought into being merely so that man can become the same as he was previously. From this, there is no progress, no achievement, no constructive purpose intended. Every man of vision will declare that this is child's play which cannot be attributed to Allah, the wise, all-knowing. Exalted is Allah from the things they ascribe. 37. 159. 7.3 The purpose of human life according to the Quran. According to the Quran, the purpose of human life is not mukti. The aim of deen is not najat. Man is neither trapped in the prison of this world toiling at a grindstone, nor is salvation the aim of his endeavors in this life. Neither has his soul become detached from its whole and is now trapped in material impurity. Nor is he born bearing any burden of sin on his back from his previous birth, nor is he sent here as a consequence of the crimes of his first parents. The Quran declares that every human child arrives in the world with a clean and untainted slate. He is given some realizable possibilities, the development of which is the purpose of his life. According to the Greek philosophers, the dynamics of the universe was cyclical, i.e. it was going around in a single circle like a merry-go-round. During this continual journey, it was not taking any step forward. If we examine it more closely, then it becomes evident that the Hindu concept of the circle of Avagyan, or the belief of salvation, is the outcome of this cyclical belief about the universe. The Hindu philosophy of life is mostly borrowed from Greek philosophy. The Quran came and rejected this doctrine as false and declared that life does not go round in a circle, instead it advances straight ahead and is on a balanced path. Indeed, my Rabb, sustainer, is on a path that is straight. 11. 56. Say to them that my sustainer is on a path which is balanced and straight, i.e. Allah is directing his universe along a straight path according to his law. In another verse, it is stated, the path of Allah, to whom belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on the earth. 42. 53. This is the path of that Allah for the completion of whose program the whole universe is in action. Therefore, the universe is also proceeding along a straight and balanced path, and not only a straight and balanced path, but one which is ascending as well, the path of that Allah who is from Allah, owner of the ways of ascent. 70. 3. Hence, the universe is progressing forward on a straight and balanced path, and alongside this is also ascending. It is traversing through its evolutionary stages and heading towards its destination. In other words, according to the Quran, the universe is progressive and dynamic. It is not static and not going round in a single circle. This is that same path on which man is invited to tread. Therefore, in Surah Al-Fatiha mankind is taught this very dua. Prayer. Guide us to the straight path. 1. 5. From this reality becomes evident that according to the Quran the purpose of the endeavors and hardships of human life is not to achieve salvation from some difficulty and become as you were, but is to progress forward on the highway of life and to ascend higher. This is called evolution. As has already been noted, according to the Quran, 1. Man does not arrive into life with any kind of burden. He comes with a clean and untainted slate. 2. He is bestowed with many realizable potentials by nature. 3. The purpose of his life is to actualize these possibilities, to manifest his latent potentials and to develop his self, and in this way, from this life, become worthy of living a more eminent life at a higher plane. 7.4 The evolutionary stages of life. About these evolutionary stages of life, the Quran has stated, "You shall surely ascend stage by stage." 84:19. Hence the purpose of life is not to gain freedom from some trap, it is to ascend ever higher by traversing through evolutionary stages. For this, Deen provides a practical program. It is obvious that there are two parts for every program. One is that doctrine, law, or formula which is the foundation of this program, and the second is that technique through which the program can reach its completion. The first condition for the success of the program is that the formula on which it is based should contain within it the potential to progress forward. If the formula itself only has the potential to produce wrong or negative effects, then the program which is dependent on it can never succeed. Next, this technique should possess the ability to make this formula blossom further. Note in what a beautiful and balanced way the Quran, in a few words, has explained this foundation and the structure raised on it. It states, "If any do seek power, then to Allah belongs all power. To him mount up words of purity, and it is he who exalts each deed of righteousness." 35:10. The prosperous and pleasant doctrine of life, which is received through revelation, contains the potential of ascension and progression, and righteous deeds raise it high. The Quran explains this abstract reality through the practical metaphor of a farm. This is a common technique in the Quran. On a farm, the fundamental item is the healthy seed which contains the potential to germinate, sprout, and bear fruit. 7.5 Iman and righteous deeds. This is that ideology which, according to the terminology of the Quran, is called Iman. After this, is that process through which the growth and development of the seed occurs in such a way, that at its appropriate time, it prospers and flowers and bears fruit. If this seed remains buried deep under a pile of earth, not even a seedling will sprout from it. Using this metaphor, regarding the aim and objective of human life, the Quran states that he has succeeded who develops it, and he has failed who suppressed it. 91:9-10. The one who developed his self, his crop reached fruition, but the one who suppressed his self, he became ruined and destroyed. Therefore, as noted in the previous chapter, there is not even a question of man receiving reward or punishment externally in return for his actions. Reward or punishment of deeds is concealed within the deeds themselves and is their natural consequence. The result of righteous deeds is the development of man's self, whereas the result of wrong deeds is weakness and decline in his self, or the disintegration of the self. This is that reality about which the Quran has stated, "Can they expect to be rewarded except as they have wrought?" 7:147. Their deeds themselves become their recompense and confront them. 7.6 Confrontation between truth and falsehood. In the development of the human self, or we can say, in the process of implementation of the permanent values within human society, destructive forces and vested interests stand up as an obstruction in its path. It is essential to confront these forces, and this is what is called the struggle between haqq, truth, and batil, evil. It is obvious that to remove these rebelling elements from the path, power will be used. Now, if the situation is such that the accumulated power is continually being used and new power is not being produced, then after a period of time, man will not have any strength left with which to confront these destructive forces. The Quran states that inherent in the system of action proposed by it, is the ability that whatever force or power is utilized in the achievement of this objective, it can replenish it. In Arabic terminology, this is called sawab. 7.7 The meaning of sawab. The word sawab means to return. Whatever has been spent has been returned in full. The English translation of the word istisab will be restoration. Therefore, under the Quranic system, whatever energies are expended in the defense of haqq and to defeat batil, these are restored simultaneously. Let us consider another example. In the case of infectious diseases, e.g., influenza, you may have seen that some people succumb to it immediately, whereas others remain unaffected. The reason for this is obvious. People who have reduced immunity are quickly overwhelmed by the germs of disease, whereas those in whom immunity is greater, are not affected by these germs. What does the doctor do in such cases of infectious diseases? He suggests such measures due to which the immunity of people improves and they become capable of fighting the infecting germs. 7.8 The meaning of Makfirat. Protection. Similarly, when some person falls ill due to these germs, the doctor helps to improve his immunity, and this increase in immunity assists the patient against the destructive elements. In Quranic terms, this process is called Makfirat. The meaning of Makfirat is protection. The term Makfir is used to denote that helmet which soldiers wear in order to protect their heads in a battlefield. In this connection, let us look at another example. You are heading to some village. On the way, the road divides into two at a junction from where you step in the wrong direction. After traveling for a mile, you come to realize that you are on the wrong path. It is obvious that whatever energy and time was spent in traveling this journey of a mile, all went to waste. About such travelers on these wrong paths in the journey of life, the Quran states, so their deeds have become worthless. 18. 105. These are the ones whose works remained fruitless and were wasted. 7.9 The meaning of Tawbah. Repentance. After realizing your mistake, what do? You again return to that same junction where you stepped in the wrong direction. In Arabic terminology, such a return is called Tawbah. But it is obvious that the result of this return of 1 mile on the same path is negative. Its positive outcome will commence at that point in time when, after having reached the junction, you start treading in the right direction. If you were previously walking on foot and now you take some method of conveyance, then whatever time and energy was consumed in going in the wrong direction, will be saved. The Quran terms this whole process as tabawa islaha, to desist from the wrong path and to produce an increased ability within oneself to follow the right path. If we wish to understand it using the example of disease, then it can be said that Makfirat is a preventive measure and Tawbah is a curative action. Or, after suitable treatment following the attack of a disease, gaining protection from the destructive effects of the disease will also be called Makfirat. It is apparent that the whole foundation of this process is based on the fact that, if measures which produce constructive results are more effective, then these will overcome the elements which produce destructive results, and will eradicate and compensate for their harmful effects. This reality is specified in the Quran in the following words. Indeed, good deeds do away with misdeeds. 11. 114. Remember that deeds which create balance compensate for deeds producing damaging effects. In another verse, it is stated, if you avoid the major wrongs which you are forbidden, we will remove from you your smaller errors and admit you to a noble entrance. 4. 31. If you continue to avoid the big wrongs from which we have forbidden you, then we will compensate for the harmful effects of your minor mistakes and admit you into an eminent place. From these explanations it is clear that, according to the Quran, 1. The aim of life is not to be rid of some punishment, i.e., to gain salvation, but by developing the human self, is to ascend and evolve towards a higher plane of life from the current level of existence in life. 2. For this aim, a human being is not conceived as an angel who cannot make a mistake. He, Allah, keeps an eye on the weaker aspects of man and says that if the balance of your righteous deeds is kept heavier, then he will compensate for your weaknesses and you will ascend one step higher on the ladder of life. In this regard, he says in very clear words, and those whose scales are heavy with good deeds, it is they who are the successful. But those whose scales are light, those are the ones who have lost their self, in hell, abiding eternally. 23. 102 to 103. Whoever has a heavier scale of righteous deeds, his orchard will bear fruit. The ones whose scale remains light will be those people in whose self there is a deficiency, and thus they will not be capable of moving on to the next stage, and so will remain in hell. This reality should be understood by relating the example of a student. If the marks required to pass an annual exam, for example, are 60%, then the student who achieves 60% will be successful in moving on to the next class. His 40% of mistakes do not obstruct his progress. But the student who gains only 50% marks does not get promotion. The marks achieved are of no benefit to him because he does not meet the criterion fixed for promotion to the next stage. He is halted wherever he is, with this proviso, that, in the example of a school, he is given an opportunity by staying in the same class to achieve success in the following year. But in the case of the human self, this is not possible. The basic condition in this case is that whichever individual in this earthly life has attained competence to such a degree with which he becomes capable of journeying through the next life, he will achieve promotion. Whoever has not achieved this much competence, will stagnate forever. 7.10 Jannat and
Jahannam.
Paradise and Hell. The Quran has called the state of the ones who are able to progress forward as Jannat and the state of the ones who have halted as
Jahannam. Jahannam
is a Hebrew word, which means that valley in which human beings used to be sacrificed. In the Arabic language, the Quran has used the word Jahim for
Jahannam,
whose basic meaning is of halting someone. This is also what happens in the universe according to the theory of evolution. The species which, after having reached a certain stage, loses the ability to move forward, halts at that stage. Hence, this belief that criminals will be sent to hell for a period of time to be given punishment and, after completing their period of punishment, they will enter paradise, is a non-Quranic concept. According to the Quran, the question of getting out of
Jahannam
does not even arise. In Surah Al-Hajj it is stated, every time they want to get out of hellfire from anguish, they will be returned to it. 22. Contrary to this, the dwellers of Jannat will be kept far from this right from the start. They will not be able to hear even a whisper from
Jahannam.
21. 101 to 102. In other words, those people who give so much development to their self that it will become capable of living in the next life from the present life, they will be the dwellers of paradise. The ones in whom there is not this much capability, will be halted from progressing forward, and they will be called the denizens of hell. From the above discussion, this reality becomes apparent to us that, according to the Quran, 1. This belief is wrong that the purpose of human life is to gain freedom from some punishment. 2. This concept of reward and retribution is also not correct, that reward means to be given something from outside and retribution means punishment. Reward and retribution are natural consequences of deeds and their effects are imprinted on the human self. 3. Jahim means that man will not be capable of traversing the evolutionary stages of life. This is why his development will stop. And since he will feel the consequences of this loss intensely, therefore his life will be in hell. 4. The dwellers of paradise will be those who will have developed within themselves the ability to traverse ever more evolutionary stages of life. This will be such a massive and successful achievement, seeing which will give rise to immense delight in their beings. According to this philosophy of reward and punishment, someone gaining exemption through another's intercession, or atoning for another's sins, or getting salvation by merely accepting Iman without deeds, or the forgiving of sins by Allah, is a non-Quranic concept. Successes and prosperities of life are the name given to the natural consequences of human deeds. These cannot be obtained as a charity from anywhere. The concept of safarish and bakshish, intercession and forgiveness, is the product of that mentality according to which God is conceived as an earthly king. The concept of God which is presented by the Quran is one whose every act is according to law and order, and in law and order there is never any question of intercession and forgiveness. If we sow wheat, we will reap wheat, and if we sow barley, we will reap barley. This is an immutable law which always remains in force. According to this law, you can gain makfirat but not bakshish. And as has already been stated, makfirat means that man through large, righteous deeds protects himself from the consequences of minor mistakes. Therefore, that which is commonly known as bakshish is also the result of man's own righteous deeds. It would be more correct to call this protection instead of bakshish. In fact, it should never be called bakshish, it should be called makfirat, meaning protection. At this juncture, it is important to clarify this much, that the Quran has also used the word najat. But the meaning of najat is not only to escape from some punishment, it also means to remain fully protected from some destruction, and this is the actual meaning of najat as per the Quran, i.e. man remaining protected from destruction through righteous deeds. The Quran has also called the life of paradise as life forever. This will be discussed in the next chapter. 8. Life forever. Immortality. No human being in the world, apart from those who have lost their mental balance, wishes to die. He wishes to live forever. Preservation of the self is an intrinsic animal instinct. Since animals do not possess any concept even of death, the thought of living forever therefore does not even arise in their heart. They only want self-preservation. Man possesses consciousness about death, therefore the desire to live forever frequently enters his heart. 8.1 Desire for life forever. In the story of Adam, the Quran has stated that Iblis exploited this motive in man. This much should also be understood, that the narrative of Adam as explained in the Quran is not the story of a particular individual, i.e. a man named Adam. This is the metaphorical account of man himself. This is the story of his human condition, emotions, problems, and the mutual conflicts of his psychological and social life, which is presented by the Quran in extremely beautiful metaphors which appeal deeply to the heart. In this narrative, Iblis represents those emotions of man which prevent him from bowing to the divine laws, or permanent values, and in this way yank him towards the ruin and destruction of hell. In relation to this story, the Quran has stated metaphorically. Then Satan whispered to him. He said, "O Adam, shall I direct you to the tree of eternity and possession that will not deteriorate?" And Adam and his wife ate of it, and their private parts became apparent to them, and they began to fasten over themselves from the leaves of the garden. 20. 120 to 121. Iblis said to Adam, "Shall I tell you of the whereabouts of a tree from which you will get immortality, and such a kingdom on which decline will never descend?" Adam and his wife ate of the fruit of this tree. From this their sexual awareness was aroused, due to which they felt shame, and they began to cover their bodies with leaves from the trees in the garden. 8.2 Immortality in the form of offspring. In this metaphor, the Quran has stated that the desire to live forever always remains alive in the human heart. He never wishes to die, but despite his thousands of endeavors he cannot escape the grip of death. Therefore, in order to satisfy his greed to live after death, he achieves this in the form of his offspring. He says that after my death, my name will remain bright through my children. The flowers and fruits of this tree will be my own flowers and fruits. Hence the very name of the map of an ancestral chain is called the ancestral tree. The Quran declares that this is a deception through which man satisfies his own heart. The life of every human being is an individual one. Therefore, an individual can never remain alive by another's remaining alive, even if the other person is own son. Immortality is achieved through the development of the human self. It is important at this point to clarify this much. That what the Quran has said about immortality not being achievable through offspring, does not mean that the Quran declares the love of wife and children as something to be despised, not at all. It states that these things are a cause for attraction. In Surah Al-Imran it states, Beautified for people is the love of that which they desire, of women and sons, heaped up sums of gold and silver, fine branded horses and cattle and tilled land. That is the enjoyment of worldly life, but Allah has with him the best return. In the following of divine laws. 3. 14. For humans the love of wife and children, wealth and possessions, well-bred horses, cattle, ranches, i.e. all worldly things which are attractive, is made a cause for lure. But this much should be understood that these things are not the ultimate aim and objective of life, these are the needs of physical life. But the pleasant abode of real life is achieved through the divine laws, not through physical laws. The Quran wishes to make it clear from this that the father cannot gain immortality through the life of his son. The method for achieving immortality is different. 8.3 Immortality through development of the self. This is achieved through the development of the human self, and death is its test. The Quran states, "Who created death and life to provide you opportunities to develop yourself and to see for yourself which of you is best indeed." 67. 2. We created death and life so that you could receive opportunities to develop the self, and so that it could be seen who amongst you does such good deeds due to which his self becomes developed. Death disintegrates the human body, but if the human self becomes suitably developed, then it does not finish with the physical death of the body. In Surah Al-Naml it is stated, "Whoever comes with a righteous deed will have better recompense than his deed, and they will be protected from the terror of that day. Death will not affect them." 27. 89. There is no doubt in this that the shock of death is a massive one. Through this, the process of the physical life of man is severed forever, as there is no return to this world. But regarding those in whom the potentials of the self have awakened, this shock cannot affect them adversely. They will not be grieved by such a great revulsion. 21. 103. From these explanations, it is clear that immortality is achieved through intention and deeds. Every individual does not just receive it as a right. Righteous deeds and intention, i.e. living life willingly within the remit of the permanent values, are not an issue of life at the animal level. Therefore the question of immortality at this level of existence does not arise. In this connection, Professor Galloway writes that every creature formed in the semblance of man, however brutish and undeveloped, is destined to immortality, is more than we dare affirm. To do so would require a deeper knowledge of divine economy than we possess. We agree with Lotze that every created thing will continue if and so long as its continuance belongs to the meaning of the world. That everything will pass away which had its authorized place only in a transitory phase of the world's course. Life after death is an established reality according to the Quran, but what kind of form or state this life will take cannot be understood at the existing level of human consciousness. In Surah Al-Waqi'ah it is stated, "We have decreed death to be your common lot, and we are not to be frustrated from changing your forms and creating you again in forms that you know not." 56. 60-61. We have established the scales of death among you, and we are not in any way limited from changing your existing form into such a form of which you have no knowledge. 8.4 Life following death. The decomposition of the human body does not affect the human self in any way, because the human self is neither part of the body nor under the control of physical laws. Hence the Quran, presenting the material concept of life, declares, they say, "What? When we are reduced to bones and dust, should we really be raised up as a new creation? Say, be you even stones or iron, or created matter which, in your minds, is hardest to be raised up? Yet shall you be raised up?" Then will they say, "Who will cause us to return?" Say, "He who created you first time." 17. 49-51. These people say that when we have decayed into a skeleton of bones and thus will disintegrate into particles, what, will we still be recreated? Say to them, that, leaving aside being bones, if you were stone or iron or something even tougher than this of which you can conceive as being very difficult to bring to life, even then you will be brought to life. They say, who will create us anew? Say to them, that same Allah who brought you into existence from nothing the first time. It is obvious that life did not come into existence according to physical laws from nothing the first time. This came into existence according to that plan which is related to Allah's universe of Amri. Life is not the product of physical laws. This came into existence through the Amr of Allah. Similarly, the life after death will not come into existence according to physical laws, it will come into existence according to the Amr of Allah. This is the next link in the evolutionary process, in which greater strength and ability will develop in the human self and it will become free from dependency on the present supports. In Surah Nuh it is stated that Allah has created you by passing you through various stages. Now, after the present stage of life, why are you not desirous of more waqar in this? The messenger Noah says to his people, what is the matter with you that you place not your hope for attaining solidarity from Allah, seeing that it is He that has created you in diverse stages? 71. 13-14. This thing, waqar, is acquired by living life according to the permanent values i.e. This will be the outcome of man's own righteous behavior. 8.5 Intention and deed. With regard to a deed, it is important to understand this much that a deed is the name given to the manifestation of an intention. The one who has no intention, his deed is not even a deed. In other words, an individual is not responsible for the consequence of a deed behind which there is no intention. Similarly, righteousness under compulsion is not righteousness, nor is evil, evil. Therefore, for the one who does not possess intention, the question of strengthening or weakening his self does not even arise. The one who, with intention through his own volition, selects the wrong path and in this way development of his self does not occur, will also be alive after physical death. But as was noted in the previous chapter, he will not have the ability within him to evolve further. This is declared to be the life of hell about which the Quran states, in which they will then neither die nor live. 87. 13. In this, they will be counted neither among the dead, nor among the living. Neither death will come to them, nor will they have life. No death, because after physical death they were made alive, no life, because life is only the name of progression and evolution itself. The life in which there is no growth and development is not life. It is stated in the Quran that such a person will say with regret, I wish I had sent something forward for my life. 89. 24. Contrary to this, the occupants of Jannat will be the possessors of immortality and will say, we shall not die, except our first death, and we shall not be among those who are punished. 37. 58-59. We, after the first death, which we face in the world, shall not die. They will be alive and active and ever more evolutionary stages of life will keep lighting up in front of them. One day you will see the believing men and the believing women, how their light runs forward before them and by their right hands. 57. 12. In other words, the life of the occupants of hell will be mere survival after death. And the life of the dwellers of paradise will be immortality, which every individual will not receive as a right, but will have to achieve through his own righteous deeds. Survival is the state of the intense regret caused by the destructive effects of following the wrong path of life. And immortality is the name of the state of continuing ahead while progressing through further extremely pleasant evolutionary stages of life. This is what the material concept of life tells man. And they say, what is there but our life in this world? We shall die and we live, and nothing but time can destroy us. 45. 24. But the Quranic concept of life teaches that If you awaken the powers of yourself, then you can remove yourself from the confines of these materialistic four walls and can progress very far ahead. 55. 33. 8.6 Both lives are not alike. This is the fundamental reason why neither the life nor the death of those who possess these two contradictory ideologies can be the same. The Quran states, "What? Do those who seek after evil ways think that we shall hold them equal with those who believe and do righteous deeds, that equal will be their life and their death?" 45. 21. Do those people, who create inequities, sit thinking that we will make them like the ones who have conviction in the permanent values and tread on our proposed potential enhancing program of life? Not at all. Neither can their life be as one, nor can their death. How false and evil is that judgment which these people make for themselves. 8.7 A Momin, believer, does not fear death. This is the reason that for a moment death is not something to fear. He knows and maintains conviction in the fact that with the cessation of breathing, man does not die, the doors of further paths of evolutionary stages of life open up before him. For him, therefore, death is the stairway to further ascendancy, and this is the reason that the Quran has declared death to be a criterion for truth. It asks the Jews, opponents, "Then seek you for death if you are truthful." 2. 94. If you are truthful in your claim, then show us your desire for death in the defense of truth. Only he can lay down his life for the preservation of a permanent value who is assured of this fact, that death in this manner will result in immortality for man. These are the very ones about whom the Quran declares, "And say not of those who are slain in the way of Allah, they are dead. Nay, they are living, though ye perceive it not." 2. 154. This is that technique through which the human desire to live forever is fulfilled. At this point it is important to understand that the immortality of man is not infinite in the same way as that of the divine self. But at the level of our present consciousness, we cannot even say what will be the ultimate end of the human self. And when it is not infinite like the divine self, and neither is it a part of the divine self, then what will be its end? In this connection, the Quran only tells us this much, that after the disintegration of the human body, human life progresses forward, traversing through its further evolutionary stages. Regarding the states of existence after this, the Quran neither discusses this nor can we make any comments. This question is beyond the limits of our present level of cognitive comprehension. Just as the issue of the beginning of life itself and the universe is beyond the bounds of our intellectual comprehension. But as has already been noted, life after death is a reality, to have Iman in which is a basic requirement of Islam. This is, in reality, an extension of the law of requital. If life is only confined to the life of this world, then the whole ideology of Deen becomes meaningless. Its structure only rises on the human self, the law of requital and Iman in the continuity of life. 8.8 Paradise and Hell in this world. So far, we have been discussing that part of life which is concerned with the world after death. But the Quran says that the manifestation of the results of human deeds begins in the life of the present world, i.e. the process of building of paradise and hell commences right here. By living a life according to the divine laws, a paradise-like society is established here in this world, and this is that paradise which the Quran does not consider of lesser importance. But this is established through the hands of those people whose abilities of the self begin to manifest here. Therefore, in the next chapter we will discuss how the human self develops and how a paradise-like society is established through the hands of those people whose self begins to manifest itself.